What driven is we have the capacity, we're very soul-aware people. And what does soul-aware mean? It means that we can step out of the experience. Our neurostructures in our brain allow us to not believe the narrative. So about 90% of the people on this planet have a brain structure to where if they just wear the mask, they're going to be safe. Where we, as drivens, human bullshit detectors, have this capacity to actually step out and reality check. That's another quality of the soul, that it can be in reality.
I wanted to shoot a quick intro video to what you're about to watch. It's one of the most horrifying experiences I've ever had in my life. So what this is called is I'm a member of a group called the Genius Network, big mastermind, phenomenal experience overall. But this particular one is, we do something called a 10-minute talk, and it's literally a gong show. So at 10 minutes, they ring a gong, you're supposed to stop. The gentleman, the producer of the video that you're watching, actually changed the time clock that I was supposed to be watching. So I was the third in line, third person to go, and I was watching the previous two and the time clock that I was supposed to watch. I'd look up at the clock in my head, rehearsing what I was going to say, look up at the clock and just be able to pace myself. So a couple key points to look out for. You'll see, I mean, it is quite the experience for me because I went completely psychotic. I was out of my mind. And the only thing I could trust, and it's going to make me cry, the only thing I could trust in the room was this overwhelming feeling of support and love. So it was an incredibly reparative experience. But when I say Carl Jung and I introduced that was the first time I looked at the clock, and it was supposed to say 5 minutes, countdown clock. So I got 5 minutes remaining, good pace, good everything. When I looked up at the clock, it said 2:14, and I didn't make sense to me. And you'll see me stutter a little bit, and then I'll look at the clock again after I say the next sentence, and then it was going the opposite direction. So rather than counting down, it was actually going up. And so I started to really get shaky. And just watch what happens. It's an incredible experience. At the end, I think I did say that I would have loved to create a retreat, so to speak, to torture people in this way, because I could not trust reality. My central nervous system, I was in complete overwhelm, on the brink of a panic attack the whole time. It was the love in the room that carried me through. So it was the most reparative experience I've ever had. Enjoy.
If everything you loved, if everything you cared about, if everything you worked your whole life to create was taken away from you, what would you do? Would you think of killing yourself and ending the pain and sense of loss, or would you fight, claw, and crawl your way back out of despair? When you do fight, claw, and crawl your way back and head forward, you possess one of the most powerful qualities you can have as a human being. The human spirit truly has no limitations, and you'll have tapped into your own healing machine, gaining a new strength not known before. And our bodies are actually built for this under the right conditions. This is why Doug Brackmann is giving this 10-minute talk. Doug has a coaching business, a podcast. He's an author and he holds retreats. You might know him from his best-selling book, this book, Driven, which is understanding and harnessing the genetic gifts of entrepreneurs, Navy SEALs, and professional athletes, and maybe you. Doug has 2 PhDs in psychology and has spent his entire career working with top performers to help them overcome their limiting beliefs, stop their cycles of shame, and achieve the ultimate professional success they deserve and have earned. Doug's title is The Monkey Mind Is Not You, How You Can Heal Your Pain. Please help me welcome my friend, Dr. Doug Brackmann. Whoa. Yeah, I know, that thing's a little friendly. Thank you, sir. Awesome, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Wow. If you're in this room, you know how to do hard shit. But what makes something hard? What is the battle? So bring to mind a circumstance that that sucked. And feel a little bit in your body. Like really bring some of it to mind right now. Just notice. because I'm inviting you to feel along as I tell you my story. So November 19th of 2022, that was 15 months ago, I was in a near fatal house fire. And in the room that the fire had started in, there was 350 pounds of smokeless powder, and I would have been a crater. My wife and kids were in the house. And if the fire department wasn't there in less than 4 minutes, I would not be here. Probably dead or worse, would have been burned beyond recognition. January 19th, 2 months later, knock at the door, daughter, answered and said, "Dad, sheriff's here, divorce papers." Surprise to me. And she got the most, my attorney said, "Oh, he is the biggest asshole in the county. We are going to court, no doubt." I went into a terror response, which is, heard it earlier today, the milk in the brain and kind of just on autopilot. Really terrified, out of my fucking head. September 23rd, just 5 months ago, a miracle happened. She signed it. Done. 8 months. And think back about the circumstance that you went through, and that's the point of this talk. I didn't defend myself. Whoa. And that ability to not defend the self is what led to a path of freedom. Interesting thing happened after she signed that. I went into a dark grief that I've never experienced before. It was a tear in my soul. And that deep aloneness. Most of you guys in this room know what that means, knows what that feels like, dark night of the soul, but it's an aloneness where no one knows what it's like to be me. Today, I'm free. And I'm clear that I'm not going to repeat the patterns of my past. I'm not scared. I don't want to have the phone call that my daughter's dead, but I know I'd make it through. And it's the point of this is really think back about your circumstance. How did it help to defend yourself? How much more chaos and pain and drama did you create by doing that? So that's where we're going. Very simple, and I keep it simple. One of my gifts is parsimony, and I take really big things and make them small. Try to. This simple process, and as you guys heard me before, I teach it. 2 operating systems. We have 100 billion years old below the nose. This thing up here, this monkey mind, most of us are very familiar with. It's where all the chattering is happening. It's where all the noise is happening. It's a problem solver. It's where your visions happen, where you can imagine all the potential in your life and also the worst case scenario. This thing down below the nose is a very different agenda than this thing above. And that was my doctoral dissertation. It's the core of all my research for the last 35 years, is really understanding how these things are different goals. And if you're in the Lean Life Challenge, saw a bunch of hands. This is why January sucks at the gym, because everybody's monkey mind can predict and, I can imagine 6-pack abs. But what happens is your ass gets stuck to the couch. This other thing down here has a different agenda. Being able to discern these two, figure out that, hey, which one, that's the classic. It's the second part of it. So 2 operating systems, this identity piece. If you've heard anything about me and you know about me, you've heard about the damn monkeys and elephants. But the Buddha observed that we are very much like an Indian elephant or an elephant down here with a bunch of monkeys up on top trying to control it. And which one are you? Am I the monkey mind? Am I the elephant? And it's a trick question, and this is the real trick to understanding this, is that you're both, obviously, and then this third thing, this magical mystery of insight. Who's looking in at what? This consciousness thing. And I love the looks on people's faces, and they're like, oh, like, what the fuck? Because it is that ability to step out of your monkey mind and observe the monkeys and the cheerleaders. You got monkeys up here that are cheerleaders and gorillas and blah, 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 blah. But then you have this other thing below the nose that is unconsciously steering your life. That's why lottery winners. What happens when you have a big exit? What happens when, in your life circumstance changes dramatically? This wants the familiar. This can imagine all kinds of wonderful things. This can imagine six-pack abs. But as you start to feel success, as you start to feel the change in your life, this thing will start to steer you back. And so who are you? And this ability to actually separate yourself out. Carl Jung, somebody I've studied extensively, love the guy. He can, very simple, this and this create this lowercase s, self. That's yourself. And I am up here, and I don't have to defend this. It wants me to defend it. It wants me to take over. It wants these reactions in my body to steer the way. And an interesting thing happened. What happened September 23rd is that my new reality, this wound that I was covering up because I was in a shitty marriage. It was empty. It was alone. But it allowed me to actually live in a world where, it's not that bad. But you take that away from me, here it opened up. And what did I do? And that's where trauma, it's really what I want you guys to take away from this, trauma. What happens in this body? Your baggage that you're carrying around, there's 5 generations of genetically encoded trauma from generation after generation after generation after generation, steering this elephant towards an environment that feels safe, that feels familiar. And if you take anything from this talk, what happens when the actual body is in safety? And that's when, how many people here experience boredom, hate standing in lines, all of these things that actually cause us to slow down to the point where the body is actually trying to launch these, it's trying to heal itself. It's a 100-million-year-old organic healing machine. And it knows how to do it. You don't have to assist it. You have to learn how to get out of the way of it. So, very simply, as the Dalai Lama said, I don't have this callus on my ass for nothing. The callus on his ass is for meditation. I've been a 20-plus year meditation practitioner, learning to sit still. Learning to just sit and observe what's happening in the body. So, get the attorney on the board, get all of this stuff. My body was freaking out. My monkey mind was coming up with thousands of scenarios about how to retaliate against my wife, how to run from my wife. And, the book Driven talks about this personality type that we are designed to live in a much more traumatized world. We are designed to live in a world that is familiar and full of chaos. And so, how many people are familiar with the fuck it button? This impulse for me to blow it all up and screw it all. I'm done, I'm out of here. Flight. And the fight response was, she has no right to take this from me. She did, blah, 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 blah. And had I followed that path, what would have happened? I'd still be in court. And so trauma healing. What has the last 5 months been like? And why would I want to sit in that much pain, that much of aloneness? And it's the same old dance, it's why you wind up dating the same kind of people again and again and again. You wind up doing the same patterns again and again and again. And your monkey mind is constantly trying to figure out, why am I doing this? Coming up with rationalizations, justifications, and if you are stuck in that small s self, you have no choice. So soul strength, this capacity to actually become, as Carl Jung said, the big capital S self. And that capacity to actually really know that I the great I am, is the real me. And yes, I am also this thing. And I talk about it in Driven, and it's a key part of what I'm teaching tonight, or today, in 10 minutes, is this capacity to actually really slow down and build this capacity just to observe what's happening in the body. And as you do, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, the biology and learning to sit in, literally, it was a tear about right in here. And that tear felt like a pit of hell. And as you feel in that aloneness and into that aloneness and deeper and deeper and deeper into it, the physiology, the biology, and one of the things that, I'm watching the time and I'm going fast. Whew. Let me slow down. What is it like today? Let me tell you more about this soul strength. This soul that I'm in, that is me. Wow, I just got really hot and really... All right. All right, the soul. Let me tell you about the soul. So the soul is the one that is your knower. And this capacity for me to be in my knower and know that I'm gonna survive, know that I'm gonna be okay. Golly, I just went blank. Holy crap, I've never to bed like this.
You're doing great. Yeah.
Do you think so?
Yeah. We're with you.
Yep.
We're with you.
Yeah, my body. So what I'm experiencing in my body right now, very similar to what I experienced early on in that divorce. So when it hit me, and it was like, and I'm Dr. Doug. I'm the guy who isn't supposed to fall apart. I'm the guy who isn't, I'm the guy who's supposed to have his shit all together. And I hid it from everybody. I hid a marriage that was really, we just didn't have that soul-to-soul connection. And you come into rooms like this where most of us are driven. And what driven is we have the capacity, we're very soul-aware people. And what does soul-aware mean? It means that we can step out of the experience. Our neurostructures in our brain allow us to not believe the narrative. So about 90% of the people on this planet have a brain structure to where if they just wear the mask, they're going to be safe. Where we, as drivens, human bullshit detectors, have this capacity to actually step out and reality check. That's another quality of the soul, that it can be in reality. And this thing wants us to feel safe. This thing can test reality. Is it safe? And so where is safety? Where is this magical moment of safety? And it's only in one place. It's nowhere else. And what is it? And it is right here, right now, everybody in this room, we are completely safe. 2 seconds from now, a meteorite can hit and we're all dead. Fact. And everybody can experience that. Yeah, that is true. But you can feel this all of a sudden waking up of the trauma. This thing in your head, this thing in your body, this is, I don't like that for some reason. But the discernment between the two is really that first step. The next step is being able to actually just observe, but then be able to track. And as you are able to track, the different spots in the body that hold trauma in different places become alive. And those places become alive, being able to understand how trauma works. So one of my teachers, a guy named Peter Levine, happened to be, by circumstance, I got into his world a long time ago, and he was taking a petri dish in his doctorate. He also has 2 PhDs, one in microbiology and the other in clinical psychology. What he was doing was taking identical single-cell organisms in a petri dish full of saline or whatever they're living in, put a hot poker in it. And he was looking at individual cells, and what these individual cells did when the environment got dangerous, they constricted. The cells went, but as the environment got safer, they opened up a little bit. They started to soften, and then they went, oh shit, still not safe. And then, oh shit, still not safe. Oh. And then they finally relaxed into that greater. And so what the body is doing, we're 700 trillion cells. We're basically a giant saltwater sack. And when the environment actually becomes safe, it tries to expand into it, to a place that's unfamiliar, and then it starts to constrict again. And in that constriction, if your monkey mind believes that it is dangerous, if you believe what's happening in your body and you're not in the big I, you're not in your capital S self, you will immediately start to justify, rationalize, and the monkey mind will take over. That is this loop that is going to kill this planet. That is this loop that everybody, because no one's living in reality. And so that soul awareness and this capacity to actually get into the soul and then create a container that's safe enough to contain it. And, flow states, these flow states that I'm a big flow hacker and I teach meditation at gunpoint. And that perfect demonstration of the 3 different systems. And so this system up here wants to hit a target at 1,000 yards. Doesn't believe it can do it, all kinds of doubt, all kinds of circumstance. This thing down here is very simply an anchor to execute what's going on up here. The soul, though, can actually observe and notice how we're not present. And the gun is one of the best teaching tools I've ever found, because what it does, it automatically, this thing called recoil, and I shoot really big guns, and this thing called recoil, we anticipate recoil. And so that anticipation of recoil is telling you that the elephant's not we're not present. And so how do you become more present? Curiosity. It's lighting up this monkey mind and becoming wet. Curiosity is a space without judgment. And that is a quality of the soul. This space without judgment then can actually come into the body to the point where it is able to actually expand. And when 3 things become one, the system into one, that is flow. And that flow state that we're all craving, whether you're downhill skiing or whatever else, it forces you into this model. And that capacity to actually feel it expand and separate back out, and then gently guide it back in. That's the core. That is what I call meditation. And so, qualities of the soul. One of my favorite qualities of the soul is somebody earlier today, Thomas was talking about it. He picked a word for the day. Those are all different qualities of the soul. The word I picked for 2023, my word was courage. Great word to pick, right? How does courage feel? Shitty. God, courage is awful. And so that ability to know that I'm in this, and despite the central nervous system activation, I was able to keep moving and not react to it.
And define what a driven is, define the D2, D4 gene, explain that part. Well, not a whole, but the short version of because we can't do this all day. So we can't do this all day, but we can.
3 seconds.
So what you guys, so you keep it really simple. 10,000 years ago, the agricultural revolution helped rewire about 90% of the population to tolerate W-2 jobs. And safe, boring, predictable. Their neurostructures in their brain, their default modal network in their brain, really supports a narrative that they can live by. We, on the other hand, have a default neural network that is operating 3 times faster, connecting 4 times as many software systems up here compared to the neurotypicals. And so we are different. And it is, you know, we are gifted in it. Truly, we are a gift to mankind. And one of the guys, this Thomas Hartman guy, one of his early theories was, you look at another pool of bacteria, you take 1,000 samples of the same bacteria, there's about 3, 4, 5% of the bacteria that always maintain this very resilient genetic structure to adapt to a rapidly changing environment. And so we, Drivens, are waiting for the next ice age. We're waiting for the shit to hit the fan and we'll figure it out. We will continue on. And so every 11,000, 12,000 years, when a meteorite hits this planet, kills most people, we're the ones who make it. We rebuild the world, turn it back into farmers, they screw it up, blow it up, and then we... and so the point of this is, we are really important to the world, guys. We are really important to the world. And we're also the ones, unfortunately, who are destroying the world. We are the ones who are manipulating the sheep, selling crap to them that they don't need, running big pharma, don't choose a German, and they're making money. And so they're operating by the wrong system. They're operating by the fear-based system and power-hungry freaks.
Yeah, that's why I say, Drivens without boundaries and ethics and morals are destructive.
Destructive. And so next book title is Sheep, Wolves, and Shepherds. And so if you're working on your wolf, you have the potential to become a shepherd. And what is a shepherd? Somebody who's living up here giving a shit about that out there. And so I will say it again, we are really important. And I think it's going to be a battle between the Drivens. The sheep are kind of irrelevant, but it is this, we need to really own how important we are and start calling bullshit on the people who are running the games on this planet. Because if not, man, we're screwed. And so so you are special. We are really, really special people.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Doug Brackmann.